So, hello everyone. So, we'll continue with the problems to be solved on curved beams. So, for your information, because some of you were not there in the previous classes, we have gone through the introduction part of the curved beams as well as the derivation related to the stresses in curved beams, and also solved one problem prior to this. One lengthier problem was completely solved during the class itself, and I'll share the recording in the classroom. You can access the first problem from that Meet recording link. So here in this presentation, you will be seeing two solved problems on curved beams. So I already solved a problem with the rectangular cross section. A rectangular cross section problem was already solved. So here we'll go through a trapezoidal cross section problem and a circular cross section problem. So coming to the second problem, so I'll read out the problem. The problem states that compute the combined stresses at the inner and outer fibers in the critical cross section of a crane hook. This is a very important problem. There is a crane hook problem. So find out the stresses at the inner and outer fibers at the critical cross section of a crane hook, which is required to lift loads up to 25 kilonewton. The hook has a trapezoidal cross section with parallel sides 60 mm and 30 mm. The dimensions are given here, okay, and the distance between them being 90 mm. The inner radius of the hook is 100 mm and the load line is nearer to the inner surface of the hook by 25 mm than the center of curvature at the critical section. What will be the stresses at the inner and the outer fiber if the beam is treated as a straight beam for the given load? So in the exam, they might give you a figure or they may not give you a figure also, because all the information related to a crane hook with detailed dimensions has been given in the problem itself. Okay, so everything is mentioned here. So you can draw the critical cross section up according to you, or you can draw a rough figure from based on which you can draw the critical cross section. So as it is given here, the crane hook is required to lift loads of 25 kilonewton. It has to lift around 25 kilonewton, and it is said that hook has a trapezoidal cross section. Whatever cross section we are going to consider in this hook will be of trapezoidal cross section, and it is having parallel sides, two sides of a trapezoid. The width is 60 mm, the width is 60 mm and 30 mm. The width is 60 mm and 30 mm. Let's say this figure is given in the problem itself. So the trapezoidal cross section is like this. So the 30 mm is at the outer fiber, the 30 mm is at the outer fiber, and 60 mm is at the inner fiber, and the distance between the two parallel side is 90 mm. It is 90 mm, and they have said the hook has an inner radius of 100 mm. So this is the center of curvature. You can draw the inner radius is 100 mm, and they have mentioned the load line that it is required to lift around 25 kilonewton. So the load line, which is shown here, is nearer to the inner surface. The load line is nearer to the inner surface of the hook by 25 mm than the center of curvature. So away from center of curvature, that is 25 mm away from center of curvature, is where the load line falls. So here we have to solve this problem to calculate the bending stresses at the inner fiber, and also calculate the bending stresses at the outer fiber, and you further calculate the direct stresses as well as the combined stresses at the inner as well as the outer fiber. That is the first part of the problem. In the second part, what they have mentioned is what will be the stresses that will be generated at the inner and outer fiber if the beam is treated as a straight beam. So if we consider this trapezoidal cross section is not curved in nature. If we consider it is not curved in nature, then what will happen? Okay, what will happen? I have told you in the introduction class itself. In a straight beam, that is the two axes, centroidal axis and neutral axis, will fall through one line or passes through a single point. It passes through a single point. Okay, it passes through the centroid or through a single point. It will be same. Centroidal and neutral axis will be same. Whereas in curved beams, the centroidal axis will pass through the centroid, whereas the neutral axis will shift away from the centroidal axis towards the inner fiber. That is the difference between curved and straight beams. So we'll go through the solution. So we'll come to the solution of this. So as I've said in the first problem which we solved, the first step what we have to follow is we have to draw the critical cross section of the cross section which is given in the problem. So this is the figure. So I have put it again here so that it will be a reference for you. And the cross section of this particular problem is a trapezoidal cross section. So when you draw the critical cross section, so first you have to draw the cross section which is here a trapezoid. So draw a trapezoidal cross section. Okay, of sides, this smaller side will be 30 mm and larger side will be 60 mm, and the distance between the two sides is h is equal to 90 mm. H is equal to 90 mm. And the remaining points, as you can see, so this point is the center of curvature of the curved beam. This is the center of curvature. So with respect to the center of curvature, you draw a straight line. With respect to the center of curvature, you draw a straight line. So this line corresponds to the point of a line which passes through the center of curvature. Okay, and after that, and also you can note that the center of curvature is at a radius 100 mm to the inner surface of the curved beam. That is, from the center of curvature, as you can see here, the distance from the center of curvature to the inner surface is 100 mm. So from center of curvature till this is 100 mm, and it is denoted by Ri, that I'll tell you later. So first you draw the center of curvature. Okay, and after that you can see a load line that is acting there in the figure. There is a load line which is acting at a distance 25 mm away from the center of curvature. So draw the load line at 25 mm away from the center of curvature line. So this will be the load line. This will be the load line. So after drawing these two, we'll draw the two axes, important axes, that is centroidal axis and neutral axis. So I have already explained to you previously. In a straight beam, the centroidal axis and neutral axis will pass through a same point, whereas in curved beam, the neutral axis will be shifted away from the centroidal axis, and the neutral axis will be closer to the inner surface. Neutral axis will be shifted towards the inner surface, and the distance between the centroidal and the neutral axis is given as the eccentricity, E. E is nothing but the eccentricity, distance between centroidal and neutral axis. Those two you write. And also you can note in a rectangular cross section and all, centroidal axis passes through exactly the center of the rectangle. Passes through the center of rectangle. But in general, centroidal axis is the axis which passes through the centroid of any given cross section. Centroid of any given cross section. So trapezoidal cross section, if you consider, the centroid usually falls around this particular region. That's why an imaginary line was drawn here, considering the centroid will be around here. We are not drawing accurate lines here. So approximately I have drawn the centroidal axis here. Say considering the centroid will be around here. Okay, so this is where the centroid will be present in a trapezoidal cross section. And we'll see the other parameters. So C1 and C2 are basically the distances of the inner and outer surfaces with respect to the centroidal axis. C1 is the distance of the inner surface. This is the inner surface, as you can see. This is the inner surface. Distance of the inner surface to the centroidal axis is taken as C1 and the distance of the outer surface to the centroidal axis is taken as C2. Okay, C1 and C2. And if you want this particular figure, if you want this exact figure to be drawn, actually it has been drawn with the reference from table 10.1. Table 10.1 in page number 163. You can see, I think in seventh serial, you can see a trapezoidal cross section. A trapezoidal cross section. Okay, so there you can see B is the smaller side, B1 will be the larger side. Refer page 163, table 10.1, where B is the smaller side, B1 is the larger side. Okay, so C2 will be the larger distance. Same terminologies I have considered. C2 is the larger distance, C1 is the shorter distance. C2 is the distance to the centroid. C2 is the distance to the centroid, and then the C1. Same parameters I have, same terminologies I have considered here. So that is C1 and C2, that is distance with respect to centroidal axis. There is another parameter, that is Ci and C0, which is the distance of the inner surface to the neutral axis, and C0 is the distance from the outer surface to the neutral axis. That is Ci and C0. Next we'll consider the rate Ri. Ri is nothing but radius with respect to center of curvature of the inner surface. Radius of the inner surface is given as Ri, as it is given in the figure. So from the center of curvature to the inner surface is nothing but 600 mm. 100 mm. And next is R0. R0 is nothing but outer radius of the cross section. Outer radius. So R0 is given here from the center of curvature to the R0. It is easy one, because if you know Ri from the center to the inner surface Ri, and if you know H also, H is 90 mm, from here to here the distance of thickness is 90 mm. So 100 plus 90 will be 190 mm. 190 mm. And one more parameter is given is L, that is what is the distance or what is the length the force is acting towards the centroidal axis. Distance of the force component with respect to centroidal axis, because force into L, length distance, will basically give you the moment, that's why L has been marked here. So R0 is completed, Ri is completed. Next we will calculate the distances. Okay, later on we'll come to the radius of neutral and the centroidal axis. We'll calculate the distance to the centroidal axis. Usually in a rectangular you could have divided by 2 and you would have got the result, that is width divided by 2, but here that is not the case since it is a trapezoid. So distance to the centroid has to be calculated. So C2 distance, you can actually get it from table 1.3a in page number 13. This is is a table which you have seen long before also. So you can refer table 1.3a in page 13. That is for F type. F type is the trapezoidal type. Okay, F type is a trapezoidal type, and the distance to the farthest point C, that is the third column, you can see this particular formula. And the figure for the trapezoid which is given in table 1.3a will correspond to this particular figure. Okay, so with the small side as 30 mm I have considered, and larger side is 60 mm. So this is the formula we have to write. So H you already know, which is 90 mm, and you can see there are two terms, that is B and B0. So refer the figure which is given in table 1.3a. Refer the figure which is given in 1.3a. If you see the smaller side, they have taken it as the terminology B. They have taken it as the term B. B is equal to 30 mm. So B will be 30 mm. And 60 usually it is taken as B1. You can see in the previous figure, that is in table 10.1, you have seen the larger side is taken as B1. So what is B0? Here B0 is given. So what is B0? So Refer this figure itself, that is in table 1.3a. So distance from the smaller side to the end of the larger side, that is this distance is given as b0 by 2, and here also b0 by 2, right? This is b0 by 2 and b0 by 2. So if you add b0 by 2 plus b0 by 2, it will be nothing but 2b0 by 2. So 2 gets cancelled and it will be b0, right? It will be b0. So you have to add this distance and this distance to get b0 value. To get b0 value. So as you can see here, the smaller side distance is 30 mm, 30 mm. Larger side distance is 60 mm, right? So this distance will basically be 15 mm. Common understanding, it will be 15 mm. Also this distance will be 15 mm. So 15 plus 30 plus 15 will result in 60 mm, right? 15 plus 30 plus 15 will give you 60 mm. So this will be the total value. So whatever value we get here, that is b0 by 2 will be 15 mm, and again b0 by 2 will be 15 mm. So you have to add 15 plus 15, that will be 30 mm will be the value for b0, will be the value for b0. So that will give you the value for C2, that will give you the value for C2. Once you calculate C2, then calculating C1 is easy. C1 is nothing but the entire distance h minus C2. C1 is nothing but h minus C2 will give you 40 mm. So distance to centroidal axis is done. Now you can calculate the radius of the centroidal axis. So radius of the centroidal axis, that is RC, you can see here. Radius from here till the inner surface is known, that is Ri is known. And if you calculate C1, which you have already done, if you know the C1 value, that is C1 value from here to here, then you can calculate the radius of centroidal axis. So RC is nothing but Ri plus Cn, C1. Okay, so RC is equal to 140 mm. This is how you can calculate the radius of the centroidal axis. So next we'll calculate the radius of the neutral axis. Next we'll calculate the radius of the neutral axis. So for that you can refer back to table 10.1 in page 163. So you can see in that trapezoidal cross section itself, there is a formula given, right? Eccentricity E is equal to capital R minus R subscript n is equal to R minus a big equation. So R minus Rn, the big equation is basically given for Rn. It is given for Rn. I have taken the smaller term. You can take the larger one and maintain that only. No issues. So this is the formula given for the radius of neutral axis, right? So you can see B is the value which is basically given for the smaller side, and B1 is the value, B1 will be the larger side distance. B1 will be the larger side, B will be the smaller side, and C1 we have already calculated, and C2 we have already calculated. C1 is the smaller distance and C2 is the larger distance, right? And one thing we don't know is R. One thing we don't know is R. So I'll in further calculation I'll show you that. So first step, we also don't know the cross-sectional area, and this is the normal general formula for trapezoidal cross-section area of cross-section, that is h by 2 into a plus b. A is one side and b is another side. Okay, or else you can write b plus b1 also, no issues. You can write b plus b1. So anything, one side plus another side multiplied by h by 2 will give you the area. So area you can calculate like this. Okay, so now you can substitute everything, all other terms. If you see, area has been substituted, h has been substituted, b is 30, b1 is 60, c2 is substituted, c1 is substituted, and you can see that r, you can see r. So r is nothing but the radius of the centroidal axis. Capital R, which is given here, is nothing but the radius of the centroidal axis. You can refer back to the figure in table 10.1, you can see r is nothing but whatever the distance is there till the inner surface plus c1, that is till c1 where it ends. So that axis which is given there is the centroidal axis. So r is the radius of the centroidal axis. So that value you have to substitute here. So with that you can get the radius of the neutral axis value. This is the radius of the neutral axis. So we'll calculate the remaining things which we have to calculate. So first one is the distance of neutral axis to centroidal axis, that is eccentricity E. So if we know radius of the centroidal axis from radius of curvature, if we know radius of the centroidal axis and if we know radius of the neutral axis, then we can calculate eccentricity E. E is equal to RC minus Rn. So substitute the values and you can get eccentricity. Next is the Ci value. We already know C1, C2, everything, right? We know C1, C2, we know Ri, we know Rn, we know Rc, R0, right? The only thing we don't know is Ci and C0. And how we will calculate Ci? We can see if we know radius of the neutral axis, so new radius of the neutral axis minus the inner radius will get you the distance of neutral axis to the inner surface Ci. So Ci will be equal to Rn minus Ri. Rn minus Ri. And C0 you can calculate. C0 is nothing but if it R0, what is outer radius minus neutral axis. If you do outer radius minus neutral axis will give you the distance to the outer radius C0. Will give you the distance to the outer radius C0. Or else you can calculate, if Ci is known, using H also you can calculate the C0 value. That is also okay. Okay. Then remaining one more thing is the L value, that is the distance of the centroidal axis to the point where the force is acting, because we need L for the calculating the moment. So L value you can see from here till the centroidal axis you can know the distance, that is distance is RC from the center of curvature to the centroidal axis, and this distance is 25 mm. If we reduce that, you will get the distance L. So that is what is given here. RC minus 25 will give you the value for length L. So applied force F value applied here is 25 kilonewton. You write it in terms of Newton, that is 25,000 Newton. So now you can calculate the bending moment which is acting about the centroidal axis. Bending moment is equal to force into distance. So 25,000 into 115 will give you the bending moment value. And be careful about the unit. It is Newton mm. It is Newton mm. So all the required parameters we have calculated now. Now we can directly go and calculate the different stresses. We have to calculate the direct stress. We have to calculate the bending stress at inner fiber and outer fiber, and then finally we'll add the direct as well as the bending stress and get the combined stresses at the inner and outer fibers, and then we'll draw the stress distribution. So direct stress, direct formula, you know, sigma is equal to sigma d is equal to F by A. F we already know, and the cross sectional area also you have calculated, so substitute that and you'll get a positive value. So positive value indicates the direct stresses acting is basically tensile in nature. It will be tensile in nature. So since it is positive, the stresses will be acting upward. The stresses will be acting in upward direction when you draw the stress distribution. So that's why tensile is mentioned here. And you can calculate the bending stress. So I think we went through this derivation also. We went through this equation in our previous problem. So bending stress at the inner fiber, you can get it from equation 10.1b in page 159. In page 159, as you already know. So the inner fiber, when a load of 25 kilonewton is acting, the inner fiber will be elongated. That is, tensile stresses will be acting at the inner fiber. So inner fiber will get elongated due to tensile stresses. So that's why here positive is given because tensile stresses are acting. So here it is positive we are considering. Whereas the outer fiber will be subjected to compressive stresses. Outer fiber will be contracted, so outer fibers will be subjected to compressive stresses. So when we consider the bending stress for outer fiber, it will be negative. It will be negative. So this is the formula for inner fiber MCI divided by AERI plus is due to tensile stress. So sigma BI, you can substitute all the values, bending moment, distance to the inner fiber with respect to neutral axis, area, eccentricity and the radius of the inner fiber. So this is positive because the inner surface will be elongated due to the load which is acting here. So this will be the value for the bending stress at the inner fiber and it will be tensile in nature. So next we'll calculate the bending stress that is acting at the outer fiber. You can get this equation just one below the previous equation which you have considered. So equation 10.1c will give you the equation for bending stresses at the outer fiber and it will be negative because compressive stresses will be acting on it. So substitute the values for C0 and R0 which you have already calculated. So R0 here capital R, but the R which we considered we wrote it in terms of small r. So you can use any term capital R, small r, no issues. So substitute all the values so that you can get bending stress at the outer fiber. So the value which you get will be negative because it is compressive in nature. Now we have calculated the direct stress as well as the bending stress at inner and outer. So now we can combine those stresses, that is calculate the combined stresses at the inner fiber and outer fiber. So combined stresses at the inner fiber will be direct stress plus bending stress at the inner fiber. Direct stress plus bending stress at the inner fiber. So if you add up, it will be around 61.073, which will be a tensile nature because it is positive. And combined stress at the outer fiber formula will be sigma D plus sigma B naught plus sigma B naught, but sigma B naught is a negative value, that is minus 44.524. So the outer combined stress at the outer fiber will be negative, means that is a compressive stress that is acting at the outer fiber. And this is a general formula which I have already told you with respect to a stress theory, shear stress theory. The tau max maximum shear stress will be around 0.5 times the maximum bending stress. Maximum bending stress. So you see here combined stress at the inner fiber and combined stress at the outer fiber, which is the maximum one. This is negative and this is positive. So this definitely is the maximum value. So consider the maximum value here and multiply by 0.5 and you will get the maximum shear stress that is present, and maximum shear stress is present at the inner fiber. Okay. So with that, all the necessary terms are done. So you can determine the stress distribution, that is draw the stress distribution of the critical cross section. So first you can draw the direct stress. You can draw the direct stress. I said it is a tensile stress which will be acting and tensile in nature, and it is a positive value also which we got. So sigma D is around 6.173. So you can draw in this particular manner. This will be a positive value and tensile in nature, direct stress. Next you draw this figure is for the bending stress, only the bending stress. Bending stress at the inner fiber, this is the inner fiber or inner surface, and this is the outer surface. So inner surface, you can see the bending stress generated was around 54.9 Newton per mm square, right? 54.9. So from here I mark an approximate point for 54.9, 54.9, and you see what is the bending stress that is generated at the outer fiber, which is around for minus 44.524. So for 44.524 is less than 54.9 and it is negative. So you have to draw in the you have to draw below the line. You have to draw below the line indicating that is negative, and mark a point which is so that the distance is smaller than the line for the 54.9. That is common sense because this should have a larger line due to its larger value. So 44 should have a shorter line. So draw a point so that a shorter line will be generated, which will be of minus 44.524, and then you join both the points, but you should not draw a straight line. You should not draw a straight line, then it won't pass through the neutral axis. Then it won't pass through the neutral axis. I have told you before, this is not linear in nature. A linear proportional line cannot be drawn for a curved beam. So it will be a non-linear curve you have to draw with respect to the curved beam. So you have to join both the points. Okay. So similarly, you can draw the curve for the combined stress. So this value is for combined stress. So inner fiber, what is the combined stress value, which is around 61.013. So very high value. So slightly a point larger than this line you can draw, so that you can see that this value is larger than the 54.9, and you can see this is minus 38.351, that is outer combined stress at the outer fiber. So draw a point little smaller than the line which you have considered here, so that in picture it shows that clearly you have drawn a approximate stress distribution curve, and then you join the 2 points through a non-linear curve, because it won't be a proportional straight line. Straight line only we can draw in the case of a straight beam, not in the case of a curved beam. So this is the stress distribution. Next, in the problem there it was mentioned that this is a curved beam, but what happens if you consider this beam as a straight beam? What happens if you consider it as a straight beam? So if you consider it as a straight beam, then the neutral axis and the centroidal axis will coincide. I have told you several times, straight beam, central and neutral axis and centroidal axis will be coinciding. So if it coincides, then this distance of the coincides means whatever is the distance with respect to centroidal axis is there, that will be equal to Ci. That will be equal to distance with respect to neutral axis, because both are in the same position. Similarly, distance to the outer fiber will be equal to the distance with respect to the outer fiber from neutral axis, because they are coinciding. So C1 will be equal to Ci and C2 will be equal to C0 in the case of straight beam. Okay, and in the case of straight beam, stresses also are general formulas. So moment by moment of inertia multiplied by the distance, So this is the bending stress at the inner fiber. This is the bending stress at the inner fiber. So you know m value, you know Ci value, but you don't know moment of inertia. So moment of inertia you can get it from the table 1.3a for from page 13 for the trapezoidal cross section. So what is B, what is B0, everything you already know. So direct you can substitute the values and you can get the moment of inertia. You can get the moment of inertia, and after that you can substitute all the values in the bending stress at the inner fiber. So bending stress at the inner fiber will be around plus 43.693 Newton per mm square. So it is a direct substitution. Now you can calculate the bending stress at the outer fiber. So you can see bending stress at the inner fiber will be positive value because tensile stresses will be acting, whereas bending stress at the outer fiber will be negative because it will be the fibers will be contracted due to compressive forces, right? That's why negative is mentioned here. So again, I is calculated, m we know and C0 also we know. So you can directly calculate the bending stress at outer fiber. So with that, we can also calculate the combined stresses. CD, sigma d we have already known. Sigma d is nothing but F by A. It is same for any curve, so any beam. So sigma d we already know. So sigma combined stresses will be equal to sigma D plus the sigma Bi which we got for the straight beam. So we'll get the combined stress, that is the tensile loading condition, and similarly combined stress at the outer fiber, you can see this is the negative value which we have got. So combined stress at the outer fiber will be minus 48. This is the value sigma B naught and sigma Bi value we got for the case of a straight beam, and then we calculate the combined stresses for the case of a straight beam. So with that value which we got earlier, so we can draw the stress distribution curve with respect to a straight beam. So C2 and C1 you know, so we can draw the stress distribution, direct stress which we already drawn, and remaining is the bending stress at the inner and outer fiber. So you can see bending stress at the inner fiber, if it is treated as a straight beam, it is comparatively lower. It is comparatively lower, and you can see the bending stress at the outer fiber, it is compressive, and hence it is negative value, and it is having a larger value in the negative direction. And as I said, centroidal and neutral axis will be coinciding in the case of a straight beam. So you can draw a linear line, straight line passing through the neutral axis. You can draw a straight line passing through the neutral axis. This straight line you will not get in the case of curved beam. You cannot draw this straight line in the case of a curved beam. And this is the final stress distribution which you get for the combined stresses. So combined stress at inner fiber and combined stress at outer fiber. Okay. So with respect to value, you draw the height of the curve profile which you have to draw here. Okay, an approximate figure which will look accurate. Okay, so by this we have completed the second problem. Okay, so we'll come to the third problem. Okay, it's not a much lengthier problem unlike the other ones which we solved. So in the first problem, it was the which we considered was a rectangular cross section, right? Second one was a trapezoidal cross section, and here the third one is a circular cross section. So any cross section can come in the exam for more than 10 marks and all. Okay, so you need to be thorough with the formulas for different types of cross section, and unlike in Spurgers and all, each and every time you need not refer much into the data handbook. Only few equations you need to know, and you need to refer to tables just for few equations. So you'll get the solution for the entire problem. So problem 3 states that we have to determine the dimensions of the curved bar as shown in the figure. Okay, we have to only determine the dimensions of the curved bar. Read the problem and solve only as per the question. What is asked, only do that. Here they have asked only the dimensions. They have not asked to calculate all the stresses. So don't consider it as a straight beam or draw the stress distribution. They have not asked that. They have only asked to calculate the dimension. Dimension also specifically, if you see here, capital R is equal to 4 times the diameter. The diameter of this cross section, as you can see, is given by capital D. So we have to calculate this D. We have to calculate this D, and we have to calculate what is the inner radius, what is the outer radius. All these dimensions we have to calculate. D, inner radius, outer radius, and whatever the dimensions or distance is there, that we have to calculate in this particular problem. And the yield tension is also given in the problem, and factor of safety is also given. So as I said, first step in solving any problem is to draw the critical cross section. As it is given here. This is the circular cross section of diameter D. So the diameter is D. Okay, and you can see this is the inner surface, and this is the outer surface, right? And this one is the center of curvature of the curved bar. This is the center of curvature, and also you can note in the same center of curvature line itself, the load is also acting on the same center of curvature line itself, the load is also acting. So there will be one line which will indicate for center line of curvature as well as the load line, okay. After that, draw the centroidal axis. So centroidal axis for a circular cross section, it will pass through exactly the center of the circle. It will pass through the centroid of the circle, which will be at the center. So draw a centroidal axis which passes through the center, and draw a neutral axis. As I have always specified, neutral axis for a curved beam will be shifted away from the centroidal axis. And where it will shift, don't think always neutral axis shifts to the right. That is not the case. Neutral axis shifts away from the centroidal axis, but it shifts towards the inner surface. Neutral axis shifts always away from the centroidal axis towards the inner surface. Here this side is the inner surface. Here this is the inner surface. So neutral axis is shifted towards the inner surface, and distance between neutral axis and centroidal axis is given by eccentricity E. Eccentricity E. Okay. And you know that with respect to centroidal axis, the terms which we consider is C1 and C2. That is, distance from the inner fiber to the centroidal axis is C1. Let's take a distance from the centroidal axis to the outer fiber is C2. So C1 and C2 here, it will be equal, and it will be nothing but D by 2, capital D by 2. So entire thing is nothing but diameter D. So D by 2, or else you can take it as 0.5 D. That is C1 and C2. And also you can write Ci and C0. Ci is nothing but distance from inner surface to the neutral axis, and C0 is the distance from outer surface to the neutral axis. This is the neutral axis line, Ci and C0. Okay. Then you can draw the Ri, that is the radius of the inner surface Ri, and the radius of the outer surface R0. Now these dimensions are not known, we have to calculate. These exact dimensions are not known, we need to calculate. So Ri from the center of curvature to the inner surface, R0 from the center of curvature to the outer surface. RC is a radius, that is a radius from the center of curvature to the centroidal axis. But RC is given in the problem. RC is nothing but 4 times D. RC is nothing but 4 times D. This is the center axis, and that is nothing but the centroidal axis in the case of circular cross section. So RC will be 4 times D, and Rn is the radius of the neutral axis with respect to the center of curvature and neutral axis. Right? So Rn we have to get to calculate. This is the critical cross section. So next we'll calculate one by one. So there again I have drawn the critical cross section here, and C1 and C2 value for further reference. So first we'll calculate the radius of the centroidal axis. One by one we'll mention the dimension. So radius of centroidal axis is RC is equal to 4D. So each and every term will represent it in terms of D, and at the end we will calculate D. After calculating D, once again we will calculate all these dimensions. So if we get a value for D, we will calculate each and every dimension. Okay. So RC is equal to 4D, and Ri, that is inner radius, you can see here RC, that is Ri can be RC, right? RC minus C1. C1 is nothing but from the centroidal axis to the inner surface. From the centroidal axis to the inner surface, this value is C1, and C1 is nothing but 0.5 times D, right? So RC is nothing but 4D. RC minus C1, that is the equation. So RC is nothing but 4 times D. So till here it is 4 times D minus C1, that is minus 0.5 times D. RD minus 0.5 times D will give you 3.5 times D, and outer radius will be from here till here, that is 4d, that is RC plus 0.5d. Whatever is remaining is nothing but d by 2 or 0.5d, right? RC plus C2 will give you R0. So RC is 4d, then 0.5d or d by 2 or C2, that is 0.5d. So outer radius will be 4.5d. Now next you calculate the radius of the neutral axis with respect to the circular cross section. Radius of the neutral axis with respect to the circular cross section, you can refer table 10.1 page 162 and refer the circular cross section. Refer the circular cross section. Okay, so this is the equation, you can get it from there. So C value is the same, C1 is equal to C2 and nothing but it is equal to C is equal to 0.5d. And R, I have said you, R is nothing but the centroidal axis which we need to consider. R is the centroidal axis. So centroidal axis is 4 times d. So you can substitute so that you will get radius of the neutral axis in terms of d. In terms of d. So remaining things, applied force, as you know, it is around 1 kilonewton. Write it in terms of Newton itself. Don't keep it in terms of kilonewton. Write it in terms of Newton. Then or else again our further units we may have to consider again while we calculate the moment, and if you miss that, all the entire value, entire answer will go wrong. So keep it in terms of Newton. Then other things which we need to calculate, one more is eccentricity. Okay, distance of the neutral axis to the centroidal axis, as you know the formula, that is RC minus RN. Rn will give you eccentricity. Rc we know, that is 4 times d. Rn we know 3.9843. You can take some more, 2 more decimal, no issue. Okay, we will get more accurate value as per the answer scheme itself. So Rn, so you will get the value for eccentricity. Then you can get, next is Ci. We have not calculated Ci. All these things we need to know the exact value. Once we will get the value for d, we need to calculate for all these things. Okay, that's what is mentioned in the problem, that is to calculate the dimensions. So Ci, you know the formula, that is Rn, radius of the neutral axis, minus, that is inner radius. Rn, radius of the neutral axis, minus Ri, will give you the distance to distance, that is Ci. Rn minus Ri will give you Ci value, which is distance of the inner surface to the neutral axis, and distance of the neutral axis to outer radius C0 is whatever is R0 minus Rn, that will give you the value for C0. Or else you can just do simple, like if you calculate Ci, then d minus Ci, if you do also, you will get C0 value. D minus Ci, if you do also, you will get C0 value. And area of cross section, you can know, that is pi by 4 d square, since it is a circular cross section. We need that for further solution. So we'll come to the further calculation. So first we need remaining things which we usually calculate is the distance from the centroidal axis to the force. So here the force is acting in the center line of curvature itself. So from here to the centroidal axis is nothing but that distance L is nothing but RC. That distance is nothing but RC, that is equal to 4D. Okay. So when we calculate bending moment, formula is force into distance. Force we know it is 1 kilonewton, 1000 Newton multiplied by distance. Distance is nothing but RC, that is nothing but 4 times D. 4 times D. So write this also in terms of D. Don't forget to write the unit. So bending moment is done. So now you calculate the stresses. Now you calculate the stresses. From the stresses equation itself, we will calculate the D value. From the stresses itself, we will calculate the D value. So direct stress, you know the formula, sigma D is equal to F by A. So sigma D is equal to 1000 divided by the cross sectional area pi by 4 d square. Substitute for pi by 4 value, so you'll get it in terms of d square. So sigma d, you got it in terms of d square. It is positive, so it is a tensile forces which is basically acting there. So here, since the yield stress in tensile is given, only the stress on the inner fiber is analyzed for the dimensions. So if you go back to the problem, I can't go back now, so you can, if you go back to the problem, there it is clearly mentioned the yield tension, that is yield stress in the tensile condition is given, right? Yield stress in the tensile condition is given. So you know that when a loading is happening, when a loading is happening in a curved beam or a curved bar, the inner surface will be subjected to tensile load or tensile forces, or the inner surface will be elongated. So tensile stresses or tensile forces are being acted, and the outer surface will be subjected to compressive forces. So yield tension which is given there in the problem, it will here it will be considered only for the inner fiber. Here we will consider it for the inner fiber. Why? Because we are here to calculate the dimensions. We are not here to calculate all the stresses. We are not here to calculate all the stresses. We just need to calculate d value. So since yield tension is given in respect to tensile load, tensile condition since it is given, we will consider the equations with respect to inner fiber and get the d value. So bending stress at the inner fiber, you know, you can get from equation 10.1b, and it is tensile in condition, so it will be positive. It will be positive. So MCI by AERI, you substitute all the values. Okay, here and there D will get cross cut, and the final sigma BI value you can get it in terms of this. This will be the final bending stress equation which you will get, and it is positive, so tensile forces are basically acting. Okay, and we'll be considering only the inner fiber condition here, because already the yield tension is given with respect to the tension condition, which will basically be the inner surface for this particular curved bar. So next we'll calculate the combined stresses. So sigma I is, we know that sigma is equal to sigma d plus sigma bi. So we'll get the combined stress values. These are direct substitution. Don't forget to write down the unit. Okay. So here, as I said, the yield strength in tension is given, and it is around 400 Newton per mm square. And also the factor of safety is given. Okay. So I mentioned this in the design of gear itself. So allowable stress you can easily calculate for any element or any material if you know the yield tension as well as the factor of safety. So yield tension is given, factor of safety is given. So yield tension divided by factor of safety will give you the allowable stress. So that's how you get the allowable stress value, yield strength divided by factor of safety. Okay. So allowable stress we have got it, right? So allowable stress, this allowable stress we'll consider it as the allowable or permissible combined stress that should be present at the inner fiber. This allowable stress which we calculate, we can consider it as the permissible or allowable stress that can be applied or present in the inner fiber. So that value we will substitute here and get the d value. Get the d value, that is diameter of the curved bar can be directly calculated. So once if you get the d value, you can calculate remaining everything, that is the radius of the centroidal axis 4d can be calculated, and the inner radius ri, that is 4d minus 0.5d, can calculate, outer radius can be calculated. So these are the major dimensions that you need to calculate here. These are the major dimensions of the curved bar that you need to calculate. So this is how you calculate the diameter of